Okay, so you know how you send in those excerpts from Brett Steenbarger's book, the one about trading psychology, the psychology of trading?
Yeah, tools and techniques for minding the markets, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to take a deep dive into that, really get into the nitty-gritty of what makes traders tick.
One thing that really struck me right off the bat, it's how Steenbarger connects trading to life in general. Like, he says, both are all about chasing what you find valuable, but gotta do it while dealing with all the unknowns and the risks. And both in trading and life, it's often our own emotions, the way we react to all that uncertainty that trips us up.
Oh, totally. Like, you can have all the knowledge in the world, the perfect plan, but then boom, your gut reaction takes over and throws everything off track.
Yeah.
Happens in careers, relationships, and definitely in trading. And speaking of things that can help us stay on track, one of the biggest takeaways for me from this book is this idea of a solution focus.
Yeah, that's a big one, right? It's about flipping the script. Instead of obsessing over what's going wrong, Steenbarger says we got to look at what's already working, figure that out, really understand it, and use that as the foundation for doing even better, not just in trading, but in every part of life.
Makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Why just focus on the negative?
Huh.
And it's interesting, like, knowing a bit about Steenbarger's background, he spent a lot of time working with all these high achievers in these crazy demanding fields.
Hmm.
And he noticed this, this kind of weird thing, these similar patterns of problems popping up across different professions, whether it's medicine, finance, you name it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it boiled down to how people dealt with the emotional side of risk. So, okay, let's unpack this whole solution focus thing a bit more. Yeah. The book uses a really cool analogy with, believe it or not, car manufacturing.
Right. And it's this really stark difference between how, like, U.S. car manufacturers used to do things compared to the Japanese. The US model, it was all about avoiding breakdowns on the assembly line at all costs. Even if it meant slowing the whole thing down, like a lot, the focus was on preventing mistakes, basically.
Like a stopped production line was like the ultimate nightmare, something to be avoided no matter what.
But on the other hand, you've got the Japanese manufacturers, and they had this totally different approach, almost the opposite. They actually cranked up the speed on the assembly line on purpose. Their whole thing was, let's force some breakdowns to happen. Because those breakdowns, they're like gold, they're these incredible opportunities to learn. You pinpoint the weak spots, and boom, you end up with a more efficient system and a way better product. So it's not just about fixing what's broken, it's about actively looking for the weaknesses as a way to improve, like way improve. It's like a totally proactive approach to getting better.
So basically, they saw a breakdown not as like a failure, but like as data. Like, hey, this is giving us info on how to up our game
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting, how this applies to trading.
because that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right. Steenbarger says the best traders, the ones who consistently make it, they're like those Japanese car manufacturers. They're actively searching for their weaknesses, their blind spots, and they learn, like really learn from their losing trades.
So it's not about just brushing off a loss and saying, oh, bad luck. It's about really getting in there and analyzing why that trade went south and using that to make your whole trading system stronger.
And then you have those traders who, well, they kind of avoid looking too closely at their screw-ups. They might blame the market, external factors, or just ignore the losses altogether.
Yeah.
And they're missing out on those critical learning moments.
And then the book dives into this case study with a med student, Sue, which really brings this whole idea to life, don't you think?
Yeah, Sue's story it's a powerful one. Like, here's this obviously bright, high-achieving woman, but she's seriously thinking about dropping out of med school, all because her grandma recently passed away.
And you'd think, okay, it's grief, understandable. But then, the book peels back the layers and you see this whole complex picture of her life. I mean, she had it rough growing up, no real support from her parents. Dad wasn't around. Mom struggled with addiction, like serious addiction. Her grandma, Nana, she was her rock.
Totally stepped up, right. Created the stable environment, drilled into her the importance of education, and was super involved in her church community, which gave her a lot of support too. And despite all that, Sue thrived. Like, academically, she excelled.
And she had to deal with some like really heavy stuff growing up, seeing her mom struggle, even experiencing abuse. So it's no wonder she built up these walls, this reluctance to really trust anyone, especially men. She even says at one point, I can't love anyone because I can't trust anyone.
Yeah, that line, it's like a window into her heart, shows how much she had to protect herself emotionally just to survive all that.
And then there's this moment in her second meeting with the interviewer, who we find out later is Steenbarger himself. And she says she felt like she could trust him because he didn't immediately jump to asking about her MCAT scores, which some other faculty members had done, and it kind of rubbed her the wrong way. Like, they were questioning her ability because she was a minority student.
And that's so telling, right? It shows how perceptive she is, how she picks up on those subtle biases, but also how resilient she is. She's been through so much, yet she's still pushing forward. But then losing her grandma, that's what really throws her off balance.
Which brings us to this whole thing about loss, and I think even more importantly, the loss of hope. The book makes this really crucial distinction.
Yeah, and the idea is we can handle individual losses in trading, in life, whatever, but it's when that hope starts to fade, that's what can really break us, because then you lose that belief that things can get better, that you can achieve what you set out to do.
Think about it, like a trader takes a big hit. It's not just the money that stings. It's that fear that sets in. Can I recover from this? Are my goals even reachable anymore? And that's kind of what Sue is going through, right?
Totally. It's not just about getting the med school degree, it's about everything it represented to her. Honoring her grandma's sacrifices, making their shared dream a reality, like buying Nana a new house. That was her driving force.
And when Nana died, that driving force, that hope, it was gone. And the book brings up this concept by Jack Brem, motivational suppression, which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, Brem's research, it basically says that, like, the more we want something, the more invested we are, the more our motivation ramps up, but only if we believe we can actually get it. But if we keep hitting roadblocks and the goal starts to feel impossible, our motivation crashes. Like, our brains are like, conserve energy, dude, this ain't happening.
So it's like all the wind goes out of your sails. And there's this interesting contrast the book makes between Sue's situation and, like, mechanical traders.
Yeah. Right. Mechanical traders, they have this system, this set of rules they follow no matter what. And losses, they're just part of the equation. They don't take them personally.
Mm.
It's not a reflection of their skills or their strategy. They just know that losses will happen statistically, and they keep going.
But Sue, she's lost that hope. Med school doesn't feel like it's going to get her to what she truly values anymore. But then there's this whole other layer to her story, another reason she wants to quit. And it gets into this super powerful concept of self-betrayal and the weight that carries.
Right. This is where things get really intense. It turns out Sue's pregnant, and she's got a good guy, Kenny, who's supportive, and she wants to be a good mom, like really be there for her kid, not like her own mom was. But it's not the pregnancy itself that's really tearing her up.
It's this feeling that she's let her grandma down in a huge way. She even says, I thought to myself that it was good that Nana had died first. I don't know how I would have told her. Like, just heartbreaking, the raw emotion there. She feels like she's betrayed Nana's trust, all the sacrifices she made for her. And the point here is that when our actions go against our own deepest values or the expectations of someone we really love and respect, that cuts deep, way deeper than just, like, failing at something because of external factors.
And the book ties this back to trading, right?
Hmm.
It's like the losses we inflict on ourselves when we break our own rules, those hurt more than any loss the market throws at us. Sue could maybe handle not being able to buy Nana that house right away, but this feeling of betrayal, that's crushing her. It shows how much our emotional well-being in trading, in anything really, is tied to our sense of integrity, of staying true to ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the big takeaways that stand out for you?
I think Sue's story is such a powerful example of how a solution focus can work even when someone doesn't see their own strengths. She's got this resilience, she's overcome so much, and that's something to build on, even if she doesn't fully recognize it. And then there's that whole thing about the loss of hope, especially when it's mixed with self-betrayal, like how devastating that can be to our motivation, our ability to move forward.
Absolutely. And to you, listening, think about your own life, the things you're passionate about. Are you dwelling on the setbacks, or are you trying to figure out what you're already doing well and learn from the times you stumble? How does hope play into your drive, your motivation? And have you ever felt that sting of self-betrayal? Like you've sabotaged your own goals, your own values. It's something to think about.
And here's a question to really chew on, based on what Steenbarger's saying. He believes that trading, because it's so fast-paced, the risks and rewards are so clear, it can actually train you to manage your emotions better. So think about your own life. What's your personal trading floor? Where do you have to balance chasing what you want with managing risk? And if you watch yourself closely in those situations, what can you learn about how you react under pressure? Because understanding that, your own psychology, that's a huge step towards growth, towards achieving what you want in any field. That's what this book is really getting at, I think.
It's about understanding yourself, the inner game, as much as the outer game, no matter what you're pursuing.
Exactly.
Really powerful stuff.